Hello. Hi, Ed.
Ariel, how are you?
Good. Good.
Which Navi are you guys learning?
Eh?
Which Navi are you learning?
Novi Melachim.
Yeah? Melachim? Melachim Aleph? Base? What?
Aleph. Aleph. You want me to put you in the list?
Yeah, I might start joining that.
Eh?
Yeah,
Okay. This Sunday we won't have one because it's Purim, so it's next Sunday.
okay.
Let me I'll do it now so you don't forget about it. So you get the messages. That's it. You're in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Evening, Yomi.
19.
Yep.
Rabba bar Rav Chana Irkis Legita Be Midrasha. He lost a get in the yeshiva. And other people found it. Omer Isimana Islamigay. If you're asking me for a siman, I have it. Eat vias aina. Vias aina means somebody recognizes it. It's my handwriting. Somebody who can recognize a friend through Tvias Ayin. I have that too, Isla Begave. So Hadruni Ale. So give me back the get. Omar lo yadani imishum simona Hadruni Ale. We don't know whether, or he didn't know whether they returned it to him because of the simon, the kasavri simonim deraisa, or imishum tvias eina Hadruni, or they returned it to him because of his tvias ayin. Why? The Daf could serve Rabbanan. A Talmid Chacham is believed with tvias ayin. Aval inish ta'amalo. A regular person would have to give a simon. Gufa. Matzah get isha b'shuk. You find a divorce document in the market. Izvan shabal moda. If the Baal admits that yes, he gave his wife a get, yachzer isha, you can give it back to her. Eina Baal moida. If the Baal doesn't admit to it, lo yachzer lo lezev lo lezeh. You don't give it back to either. Now, bizman shabal moida. We say if the Baal admits that he gave a get, yachzer isha. What do you mean? Lech Hashem akasav litain benisim. maybe that he wrote the get to be given in Nisan. V'lo nasan la Tishrei. He didn't give it to her until 6 months later. Now, meanwhile, Ozil Baal Zavin Peri. A Baal is allowed to eat payros from a field of his wife. He went ahead and sold payros between Nisan and Tishrei. And then the Mafke Legita, the cost of Benisan. So the woman's going to be smart. She's going to take a get whose date was in Nisan, where if once she's divorced, the husband doesn't have the right to sell the payros. She will extrajudicially, because she would not have the force to be able otherwise to remove it from people who had bought things from the husband. That's Shalok Yedin. No, according to Manda Amar, it says, once a husband decides to divorce his wife, then Shuvein Lebal Peiros Shapir. Because there's no chashash that he went ahead and sold Peiros. Or if he did, she would still be able to take it away from the koinim, because that would be the right din. We're on Yud Test 19. Elamanda Amar Yesh Lebal Peiros Achas Nesina. But according to the shita that the husband can eat peiros until the get is actually given, Michael Amema. How come we're not concerned about this? So Kias Lamitrov, when she tries to take the money away from the konim that bought it from the husband, Armin-in-law, I see why Amos Matagitiliade. Give us proof when you actually had the get in your hands. And if so, you'll be entitled, if you were given the get early and the Baal sold it inappropriately, we'll have them return the money. Fine. So the question then is, why is this din different than when you find a shtarchov in the market? It's not. Matzah shtarchov. If the shtarchov is backed by land, lo yachzir. V'ukimna kishachayv moeded. The Lov admits that he borrowed the money. So why don't we return? Why don't we give it back? Because mishum shema cost of lilvos benissen for the Lov Tishrei. The loan wasn't funded until 6 months after the date. The katar from alakucha shelo kedim, and the guy will take land away from people who bought land, not midin, because the loan hadn't been funded yet. So why over there also didn't we create a rule? Return the shtarchov. Also nami lahad there. The chiasi lemitrif, but if he wants to come and take land away from people who bought it, name malay, I see right Amos Mata shtarchov liyadeh. Tell us when you actually funded it, and that would solve that problem. Omri, the answer is not the same. Hachagabi get isha asilokech v'tevoy. By get isha, the person who bought payros from the husband, he's concerned that maybe the get wasn't given to her at the right zman, and then Omar. So the purchaser says, "Hi, Jordan Rabban Lagita Mishum Delo Tagim V'Teisav." Maybe a special din that they gave the get back to the wife. They don't want her to be an aguna. She won't be able to get married without a get. And they were not worried about the financial aspects of this. Harshto de Ka'asis Lamitriv. Now she's coming to try. We bought payros from the husband, and she's claiming it was done not according to din. So Tesav Tesirayim is what to get to Liyada. So there, we actually ask her to tell us when she actually got the get in her hand. But Hachagabi Shtarchov, Lo Asi Lokech Latava, the purchaser of a field, he's not gonna has to ask a proof from the Baal Ashtar, any kind of raya. He figures from the fact that the Chachamim found a shtar, somebody found a shtarchov, and the Rabbanim said you can give it back. The whole point of a star is to say when you can take a field away from a purchaser that bought it at the wrong time. They went and ran, investigated, and made sure that the dates were appropriate. And that, so therefore, the Chachamim say don't return a star without raya. Okay. Then we said shechrei avodim. If you find documents that free an eved, you don't return it. Matzah star shechrei b'shuk. If you found a document that freed a slave, bisman sharav moide, when the master admits that he freed his slave, yachzer leved. The eved needs the star to prove that he's Jewish if he wants to get married. Ein harav moide, lo yachzer lo lezev lo lezeh. If the master doesn't admit that he freed his slave, you don't return it. So bisman sharav moide mia yachzer leved. But when the master admits, we do return it. B'amai necha shema kosav litein lo b'nissen. Maybe it's dated in Nisan, but v'lo natan lo ad Tishrei. It wasn't physically given to him until 6 months later. V'azol avda v'karan nechosin minisav ad Tishrei. The Eved went and purchased items between Nisan and Tishrei. V'azol rav is vinu. And the master went and sold them. The Eved will pull out the star that's dated 6 months earlier and claiming that it really didn't belong to the master. It belonged to him. He's going to trick the purchasers, not midin. So why do we return it? Is it a good thing that an Eved is going free or not? So according to the opinion that says it's a schus, so Eidin b'chosmav zachin lo. So once Eidim signed the star, so he is a free man. So we don't have to worry, Shapir, that the ksivas star doesn't make a difference because that's actually when he goes free. So there's no trickster to people who bought stuff in between those 6 months. That it's a liability that he goes out free. If the star hasn't been given, the chasim statements don't mean anything. He could actually appropriate assets not according to din. So there also the chiyos lemitra. If he is going to be successful at taking assets away from people who bought stuff, he has to bring extra proof when he actually got the star in his hands. Then daidiki maton. The Mishnah talked about documents that document a gift. Tarabar ezu daidiki. Da ta lemekim v'liyos. This document will be a proof to imes. The chosin will play maton. If this person should die, whoever signed it, his assets will be given as a gift to somebody else. If it's written from today and after Misa, then it's a good kinyan. Alma iksiva mayom ulachar Misa dekani beilo lo kani. So are you saying that if he didn't write mayom, it's not koine? On Rabbi Achi Kamar, Ezel matnas bari. Somebody who's healthy who gives a gift. Shehi kimatana shchivmara. A person on his deathbed is a shchivmara. In those cases, when a shchivmara gives a gift, lo kani alachar misa. The kinyan only happens after the person dies. So a matnas bari, when does that work the same way? If a healthy person writes in a shtar matana from today and after Misa, that will work. Taima de lo amertnu. In all those cases, the giver didn't say give. Ha'omer tnuf, he said, give, noisli. Now, reminu, matzah daidikos, you found like a will, apotekiyos, a document that documents that a certain piece of land is the collateral for a loan. Umatonois, or gift documents, even though both parties agree that the star was written and given, we don't give it back. But in our case, we said you do give it back. A healthy person who gives a gift, which it doesn't say I'm on a sick bed. And the other case is the case of Shchivmara. Now, which is the case? Masnisen diktani ha'amar tnu noisnim, when it said, if the person says give, we give it, that's a Shchivmara. The bar ma'adru. A gift of a Shchivmara can be reversed. Anything that a sick person writes that should be given after his death, he can change, and he can give the gift to somebody else. So since it can be reversed, the Amrina Michael and Meimah, what are we going to say? Dilma Kosva Mikar La'ai v'amlich v'loyav v'nielei. He originally wrote it for Ruvain, and he changed his mind and didn't give it to him. The other Kosva Lina Shachrin, he gave it to Shimon, but Yon even gave it to him. So now that he's going back on the guy that he gave it initially to the second guy, he can turn around the second guy, give it to a third guy. But even Matnas Bari, if we're talking about the gift of a healthy person, you have a less pseida. If the star that's found now is the gift of a healthy person, there's no loss to the person who's getting the star, because they got it like a matna shchivara. The chinav kitarti, if let's say a second star appears, basraisa zachu, we always look at the latest date, because these people can change their minds. And whichever star is later, that's the real gift. He obviously changed his mind from the first one. And if it's a case of a shchimur, also less pseida, there won't be a financial loss. Same thing, the basraisa zachi. The star that's documented with the latest date is going to be the operative one. He obviously changed his mind from the first one. However, Tani b'Baraisa, the Baraisa said, "Afal pisha shnei moedim." Both parties admit lo yachzor lo zev lo zeh. Now, that's a matnas bari. A regular healthy person who gives a gift cannot go back on that gift. The lava maradu. It's a permanent gift. And then, so we say Damrinon, what's the problem if you find such a star? We always worry that maybe the guy wrote a star and changed his mind and wants to give it to somebody else. So that's why we shouldn't return the star to either party. But still, now, if he's changing his mind, I cannot go back on a gift because I'm healthy and I've already given it. But yeah, I may have given the star and I wanted it to be given back, and I would write a new star. That if this original star was shown to somebody, they would see the later star. El Abrina Le'anon, we say, Hi kasva lo yavin and lie. Don't give the star to this person. It was written to him, but it wasn't given to him. And boys that's a lie. Or even if he didn't give it to the other person, he wants to give it to somebody else. He'll write another document and give it to the other person. The Avet Lina Shachrina, that if he had given it to somebody else, let's say there won't be a loss. The Kodem Zachi, the star with the earliest, here it's the earliest date. Because a Bari cannot go back on it. So we look for the star that has the earliest date, which is the opposite of the case of the Shchivra, because there he can change his mind. Maskim Rav Zvid, how can you explain the steer in the Baraisas that way? The Baraisa described both of us as a daitiki, which is a star tzavah and not a star matana. It's a star that says you should give a gift after his death. It's not a current gift. Both cases are talking about a guy on his deathbed who's giving a gift, which is supposed to take place after his death. V'loi kasha, habe, it's when there's a father, and he wrote the star, v'habebrei, and then there's a son. And he's the one that says that the star is correct. The Mishnah has said when we say give it, we give it. We're talking about the father himself. The Bar Mahadi, when he's a shchivmer that can go back on his gift. The Amrinon, let's say that there's no loss, because if we have two staros, to kamu basra zochi, the later date will be zoicha. Because obviously he changed his mind. He katani b'baraisa, but the baraisa learns that afal pisha shnei amodim lo yachzir lo lezev lo lezev. If they both admit that it was written, you still don't return it. Why? That's not talking about a shchibra. It's talking about a babari. The father was healthy, and then there's a son. The amrinon dilma kosav avulai v'amlech v'yavanili. Maybe the father wrote it, but changed his mind, didn't give it. After the father wrote it, the son himself made arrangements to give it to somebody else. Now, if the father went back on giving it to who he wanted to give it, but he's a bari, and I can't go back on a gift. Maybe the son will say that the father gave it to this guy, and he will give the document, but the nasal v'nafik b'nei da'agdi zachi v'niflik b'adei. So the son will say, I will go and take it from that guy, and I'll make a conspiracy and divide it with him. So there's this chashash of a kanunya, hilka chamrin le'anon, hai ksiv le'avin and leila, hai, don't give it back to the one who actually wrote it, the Dilma Michtav Kasve Avua Miyav Lo Yavile. The father wrote it but didn't give it. But V'yavida Adlina Shachrina V'kohadart Be, and gave it to somebody else. And Eli Ikushta Ka'amrit, and if you're telling the truth, the Yav Le'avich, that the father gave it to you to give. Zilat Hashtak Siv Le'shtachrina, we go ahead and write another star. Inami Lo Yav Le'avua V'kasve Asina Shlachrina. Maybe the father didn't give the field, and you're giving it to somebody else. There's less leip seda. There's no loss. The kamod basra, kamod zachi. All we have to do is examine the two staros. The one with the earliest date will be the matanas bari that we can't go back on. Tanrabar. Matzah shoiver, a receipt, right? The husband paid the wife's ksuba, and she writes a receipt and gives it to the husband to hold on to. So he can show, I paid it already. And this shoiver was found in the street. Bisman she'isha moide, if the wife admits, yeah, she received her ksuba, and I wrote the shoiver, yachzir laboil, then you can give it back to the husband. If, of course, eina isha moide lo yachzir lo lozev, they don't give it back to either. Now, bisman she'isha moide, even in the case where the woman agrees, we say miyas yachzir labal. The halacha was you give it back to the husband. We assume that he paid her off and she gave him a receipt. Why? Why don't we consider lechesh dilma kasva litain benissen? She had a receipt written, which is dated Nisan. V'lo nasna ad Tishrei, but the receipt wasn't given to him until 6 months later. V'oz zavanta l'ksuba. A woman is allowed to sell the rights to her ksuba at a discount, no, because there's always a possibility that she'll predecease the husband. There will be no ksuba, so the person who buys the ksuba takes a risk. And she sold it minisan on Tishrei, and then Mafik lay. The Baal will pull out the receipt that was written with the date of Nisan. The person that the Isha sold her ksuba to, he'll show up and say, "You had no right. I got the ksuba already was paid out. She had nothing to sell. Give it back to me." But really, she wasn't funded until 6 months later. So why are we giving it back to the husband? Amarava. We'll go into this tomorrow. Okay. So tomorrow we'll learn at 7:30 Daf and 8:00 Tzorba.
Okay, Shkoyach Ernie, I'm putting some out to everybody. Hopefully I'll see you
Walter.
from Israel.
Safe travels,
I'll
Walter.
the Daf from Israel.
Fulfill the mitzvahs.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Mario.
Buenas noches, Mario.
Buenas
Buenas
noches,
noches.
Mario. Yeah, have a nice Purim. I'll see you.